法もうまく使えなくなっちゃうのよ。
だからこんなに散らかってるのね。
Yeah, it was totally just because she was sick.
Cold opener for this one previewed the main conflict of the episode, which had the Ojamajo working for Majodon.
すべて配達してもらおうか。
Insert an image of Jeff Bezos in a witch's hat here.
The episode proper would then establish why they were working for less than minimum wage, with their grinders running out of their special baking spice. They were also running low on their normal baking ingredients like flour and butter, which they probably could have just bought from the supermarket, but I guess the exchange rates are better in the witch's world. I mean, it's the same reason I'm going to Japan in a couple months. Those Princession and Precure toys are gonna be dirt cheap. But yeah, Della, for reasons we'd see later, hadn't stopped by in a while with their usual resupply, thus Majrika suggested they just go directly to the source.
買いにってどこへ？
魔女問屋じゃ。
I don't know. I've heard that chain is like the witch's world's equivalent of Walmart, which tends to bring in some of the weirder witches.
With that, then, after some stock animation that still makes me question why no one dodges that cover, the Ojamajo crossed dimensions. And considering how far they had traveled, Doremi figured they could visit Hana, in spite of it not being a visiting day at the nursery, which, yeah, very understandably, they were turned away by Majo Miller. Like, y'all do realize there's such a thing as taking advantage of people's kindness, especially when you're already kind of getting special treatment.
ほんのちょっとでいいんです。花ちゃんに会わせてもらえませんか？顔を見たらすぐに。
Ah, I see we've got some proud helicopters in training.
Yeah, I hope they weren't trying to make us feel bad for the Ojamajo here, because it didn't really work. Thankfully, the following scene did kind of make up for it with how creative it was, as the Ojamajo stopped by the Majodonia, which was basically a department store without actual departments, as customers could just go up and down to whatever level they wanted. It's a neat idea that took advantage of the witch's tendencies to ride their brooms everywhere, and made for a very unique setting. It also kind of highlighted their lack of care for aesthetics and organization, as the Ojamajo had a hard time finding what they were looking for. Thus, they did what most first customers do, and just asked a clerk.
お客様、こちらでございます。では、せっかちな店員さんね。
Still better than the service I got from Target the other day.
Eventually, they managed to get all of the normal baking ingredients, and just needed to buy some new magical dust, which they didn't sell in the store proper, and needed to get from the manager in the back room. Yeah, okay, credit where it's due, even Target and Walmart don't have setups like this that feel a little too shady. Anyway, the manager turned out to be Majodon, which, yeah, I guess was kind of given away by the name of this place, who asked for payment up front, to which the Ojamajo turned out to not have enough.
言っておくがツケはお断りだ。現金でなければ魔法のもと。
Of course, Visa and MasterCard would try to pull the same crap in the witch's world.
But yeah, as it turned out, even if they used all of their magic money on the dust and not any of the baking ingredients, it still wouldn't be enough, which is just kind of confusing. Like, did Majrika miscalculate? Was Della always just giving them some overly generous discounts? Or was Majodon just being a stick in the mud? And okay, I might have actually answered my own question. But with that, since they couldn't pay for the dust, they just had to earn it a different way, which led to the cold opener. As it turned out, their deliveries had backed up due to most of their delivery witches falling ill with colds. And I guess child labor laws didn't exist in the witches' world, and even if they did, Majodon would probably find some workaround.
Yeah, the Amazon jokes are just writing themselves at this point, aren't they?
Case in point, here's those times your deliveries come in late and damaged. Though I'm not gonna lie, I actually did kind of enjoy this sort of world building. Sure, I'm able to make a lot of jokes about this being like a certain online store that pretty much owns the planet at this point, thereby making this magical fantasy world feel derivative of our own, but this also does make it feel like an actual lived-in world by having it be advanced enough that they at least have a supply and demand system. Besides, if we need more fantastical elements, well, we did get it right in the next scene when the Ojamajo's deliveries took them to Della's apartment complex, which included a security system in the form of a waterfall barrier. One that Doremi learned the hard way that you can't just pass through it like a Looney Tunes cartoon. No, for that, they needed to be buzzed in.
私の苦労はい。
I don't blame you. Those intercoms are impossible to figure out.
But yeah, as it turned out, the reason Della hadn't resupplied them in a while, and why they were doing her job, was because she had come down with a cold. In fact, her parcel was essentially a bunch of cold medicine. Thus, as an extra service, they helped nurse her a little back to health by cleaning her apartment and making her some rice porridge.
And here I am just wishing that my Amazon package would be delivered in front of the right door.
Of course, as thanks for their services, they were hoping to get a little extra off their next order from her, but she refused, which would make sense if our earlier discount theory was right, so the Ojamajo just got back to the deliveries.
すごく流行ってるみたいね。
Oh, if only I could reviewed this 5 years ago.
But yeah, with the Rona having somehow reached the witch's world, which I wouldn't doubt it'd be able to do, the Ojamajo were concerned that Hana might have contracted it too. Thus, they went back to the nursery where he was working, though to Oyashi's credit, he did stand his ground on not just letting them in for about a minute before he was talked into it by Ompu in exchange for helping him with his chores. Yeah, I'm still waiting on this guy becoming a consistently likable character. Thankfully, he was shut down by Masha Miller, but she also turned the Ojamajo away again.
Well, that was pointless.
I mean, okay, they did end up learning that Hana was a picky eater, which would play into the final act of this episode, but considering we're almost at said finale, yeah, this is a pretty last minute conflict. More importantly, they needed to finish their initial job, which to be fair, they had wasted a lot of time on this Hana stuff. Though at least, we also did get some payoff to the Della subplot, as after learning that they had helped one of her employees, Majodon decided to at least reward their hard work by setting it up so that it could meet with Hana through a delivery. Thus, after giving them the magical dust she promised, she told them that they could go to the nursery after having the queen install the new dust for them. Though yeah, there's also this little bit where Majodon explained how only the queen could refill their wands, which seemed like an interesting little bit of world building that I kind of would have preferred that they had focused on instead of Hana, but no, they just had to go see the Dadaru. With that, they went to the nursery where they fed Hana the carrots that she had turned down earlier by cooking them with honey and butter, and after eating just one spoonful, they immediately just gave her the pudding that she was whining about.
Yeah, that's what we call in the babysitting business, spoiling the little brat.
With that, the episode ended with a fully recovered Della delivering a parcel from Hana, which turned out to be a picture of pudding, which she expected them to bring the next time they visited her.
In a way, this episode's kind of like the reverse of the last one, in that the ending kind of ended up taking away from an otherwise pretty good episode.
I mean, I won't say the Hana stuff was necessarily awful, but it did end up taking away from the main plot by just being pretty underwhelming.
Thankfully, the rest of the episode did have some pretty good world building that, surprisingly enough, has aged really well after 2 decades.
Maybe it's because I'm a bit too much of a regular customer to them, but I do kind of get a kick out of watching shows that parody big corporate store chains. And while it was nothing really cynical, this episode did end up, likely unintentionally, parodying the overly aggressive shipping policies and practices of online shops, in particular Amazon. I mean, just the fact that their business ended up picking up while the Witch's World was on lockdown made this episode age insanely well. Moreover, it did end up adding some much needed world building to this setting that does make you wonder what sort of economic systems they would have to cover supply and demand. And sure, it did get a little confusing when the Ojamajo were unable to pay for their dust, which just felt more like an excuse to start up this plot, but again, it led to good world building, so I can excuse it. However, things then got really derailed by the Hana subplot, which could have been its own episode about dealing with picky eaters, which they didn't even really do well here by just instantly giving in to the kid. As a result, it did end up taking away from an episode that is way more relevant these days, making it overall a still pretty good episode, but one that I do wish was better. Whether you catch a cold or the beer bug, I don't think buttery sweet carrots are a good solution.
Thanks for watching, and considering I'm currently on this big corporate entity, I guess I should encourage you to watch our other videos, just doing my job.
But yeah, we've got a lot coming out almost every day, including an overview for a series from last season coming soon.
Look forward to whatever comes next. Until then, though, farewell for now, my friends, and oh, my delivery actually came on time for once.
Thank you, hey, you see what's written on top of this package? What does it say? No, it doesn't say fragile.